A sign that the Federal Reserve has officially become a joke. Literally. You gotta watch this.
So even though the first $2 trillion did not create the jobs or improve the housing market, the Fed decided to do another $600 billion anyway?
Yes.
Who put the Ben Bernanke in charge?
What the secretive and far too powerful Federal Reserve is doing to the global economy is no laughing matter. But an enterprising cartoonist took a stab at bringing some levity to the situation while explaining it all in layman's terms and used cartoon bears to do it. Take a look.
Did you hear about the Fed?
No. What about the Fed?
They announced another round of the quantitative easing.
What does that mean?
It means they are going to make large asset purchases via PAMO.
What does that mean?
It means they are going to expand their balance sheet and buy treasuries.
What does that mean?
It means they are going to print a ton of money.
So why do they call it the quantitative easing? Why don't they just call it the printing money?
Because the printing money is the last refuge of failed economic empires and banana republics, and the Fed doesn't want to admit this is their only idea.
Adorable and scary at the same time. Omid Malekan is the writer behind this cartoon. He joins us now. It's a great piece. I mean, we were rolling in the aisles watching, and I know it's far longer than this. We have another clip we're going to run. But what was the goal of you and your team when you're reduced to such basic, simple statements, the fallacies under which the Fed operates?
I had a group of friends that are people who are very intelligent, capable people, but just not of a financial or economic background. And they knew what the Fed was doing was important and that it would impact them, but they didn't understand because the language and the vocabulary is so different than anything normal people converse in. So they kept asking me, what does this mean? What does that mean? And then I said at some point, you know, it'd be funny if I made a cartoon that broke it down in simple, yet funny, yet descriptive ways, what exactly it is that's going on with our monetary policy. And of course, it has a lot of my own opinion on it.
Right. In the clip that we just watched, Omid, you're basically explaining this thing that the Fed calls quantitative easing.
That's right.
Is basically the creation of cash. It used to print it. Now it just adds zeros to the bank account of member banks and tells them to spend money that the Fed just created in thin air, which devalues everything that we already own.
Yes.
Why would it take a cartoon to explain something like this to the big bankers in the world who just assumed you weren't doing this?
Well, that's something else people ask me is why don't they just speak English?
Right.
And Bernanke's actually better. If you remember with Alan Greenspan, there were people, professionals whose job it was to sit there and spend hours deciphering what he just said in his speech. And I don't know why they do that. I think it might be a little malicious because they could just say, we're going to print money and do this, and whatnot.
All right. You have another clip that you did, or a clip that we cut, which we're going to run now, having to do with the Bernanke. Let's listen to this one.
Even though the first $2 trillion did not create the jobs or improve the housing market, the Fed decided to do another $600 billion anyway?
Yes.
Who put the Ben Bernanke in charge?
The Ben Bernanke was first appointed by the President Bush, then he was reappointed by the President Obama.
But wasn't the President Obama supposed to bring the change?
Yes.
How is putting in charge the same fool, who has been wrong about everything, the change?
Well, under the President Bush, the Ben Bernanke only blew up the American economy. Under the President Obama, he is working on blowing up the entire global economy.
That does not sound like the change we can believe in.
I gotta tell you, that's fabulous. That does not sound like the change we believe in.
Definitely not. And one of the things that to me is really fascinating about the issues of monetary policy, it's not partisan in any way. The same things that were tried under President Bush by the same people are not being tried under President Obama, just bigger.
All right, how do these cartoons get so popular? I mean, this thing has been seen on the new media by millions of people, hopefully by a lot more tonight.
Yeah, it's just the whole thing with something going viral. I think if you hit a nerve and it touches people in a way that they feel like they benefited from watching it and want to share it with other people, then they spread it.
Will it encourage debate?
I hope so. In a way, it already has. If you go on YouTube now, just search for quantitative easing. There are a lot of other cartoons and videos inspired by this one. Some people agreeing with me, some people disagreeing, some people mocking mine, which I think is great, though, because this is a debate that needs to be had by everybody, not just people in Washington or in the Fed.
You're right on the mark. You're providing a great service. There was a time when the Fed was so sacrosanct sacrosanct. No one would debate it. Now we all do. Thanks in part to you. It's great work. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Here's something you have a right to know about the Constitution. The First Amendment says Congress shall make no law abridging the freedom of speech. It doesn't say that freedom of speech ends where the government's international diplomatic activities begin. Indeed, though many of the most controversial free speech battles in recent decades have been fought over topics such as obscenity, it was the freedom to criticize the government and to expose the government, to engage in political speech, that the founders were most concerned about protecting. We discussed earlier WikiLeaks, and WikiLeaks has been criticized for revealing military secrets. In the case of secrets, there's an interesting argument to be made about national security. How quickly, though, the government descends into arguing that even leaks that are merely embarrassments should be prosecuted. If the government had its way, censorship would be the standard coin of the realm.